those ones are those ones that you're like, okay, 45 minutes and we're done. Like, you gotta stop talking. Or they don't give you anything. You know?
Right.
It's really, I mean, it has to be really awful to be a 1, and it has to be like,
but it
amazing.
Amazing to be a 4, but not necessarily long.
No.
Right. Okay, good.
No,
okay.
No, but I also think too now,
Sometimes
after
longer.
seeing your slide presentation and you talking about the fact that we can, I guess up to today, to me, the Retell always felt like something to check off on the step test that we say we got done.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not sure I even fully understood, but now I realize, like, because we had kind of initially made all these checklists with all the major events and we're checking them all off, but I'm thinking, well, that's really stupid because then I'm not really paying attention to what I'm hearing the kids say, because if I'm going to use the Retell for my teaching, I need to be in my head taking notes and thinking like, okay, yeah, they mentioned characters. He mentioned in that one the fact that the kid felt guilty. Okay, we do understand some character feelings, but there were no character traits. There were a lot of other things, or missing that, like the major message, like she said, about what this was. I'm leaving now with totally different information about Retell than up to today what I was leaving with. I was just like, okay, well, they got some of these details, but didn't get some of the other ones. Woo, Retell is over. Now let's get to the comprehension.
Right.
And
the real comprehension.
Right. This makes that very different. I mean, for me personally, I don't know how anyone else feels about it, but that just kind of changed everything for me.
Yeah, well, I asked teachers, like, once you get a little comfortable with just the managing the whole assessment, if you could take a minute after you give the Retell to, if you give a 3, to say what they, to know what they didn't miss, or to check off what they did well, and maybe, like, if they don't did not interpret, or give a quick thing as to what they're missing. Is it that they didn't include major events? Are they really good with characters but not the events? Or to give some insight, because I think this is the first line of defense. Rather than like, oh, I got to think of tons of critical thinking and inferential questions for my guided reading groups, I'm going to make sure that they can keep track of the story so they can even get there.
Yeah.
Because if they don't know why he's flipping on and off the lights, or why he's turning, they're never going to be able to answer the critical thinking and inferential questions on the oral comp or written comp. They have to have a true understanding of the events and how they fit together. And this is the best way to figure that out.
Yeah.
So if you can use this as a little, like, circle whatever your record keeping is, either circle what they did well or circle what they didn't, doesn't matter. But some indication to you of what they did and didn't do, I think can be helpful when you go back in the data and say, where do I start with this kid? They miss, because all the time they miss Retell, written comp, oral comp. Where do you start? You can't just fire away lots of questions, because if they're like, I don't even know what the story, I don't even get the story. This is where you gotta go first.
Okay.
And that's why that Retell as a habit of guided reading can be really powerful. And it doesn't have to take the whole time, but just as a habit. Or if you have the kids who are done early, Retell with sit them next to each other and have them retell with each other.
And some of maybe what the problem too for me is that I don't have the major events, because I would think it's important that he's flipping the lights on and off, but if you're saying that it's not, but doesn't that lead to his character traits of feeling guilt, like the guilt and all of that other part? So I think the part is apparently I don't know the major events.
Right.
And that's where, I mean,
well,
if that's not important in that story, I mean,
So
that's
how
the
many
whole
major
bulk
events
of.
do you think you would need to hear in order for you to give a child a 3? And which major events are you going to accept that you know without this, they can't go on with the story? Like, if you don't tell me this event, you can't give me a reason for the rest of the story. Or, so
I just
how
think,
many, what's an
without that
acceptable
light thing,
number of?
I just think without those lights things, without them mentioning that in the Retell, they're not gonna be able to answer those questions as far as why, I'm trying to even think of what some of those questions are, but just
Why
that
doesn't he tell his mom?
That's how he knows, that's why he thinks it's a bill. Like, that's how you know
I would accept if they just said he was worried about the lights going off. I would accept that because that kind of implies that. So I mean, I guess I don't know that he'd have to say he was turning the lights on and off, but
just
he'd
that
have
he
to
was
say
something
something
about that he
that
was
shows that the kid was concerned that the lights weren't, or he was worried that the bills
stove
weren't
weren't-
paid or
okay.
something
Right,
like
yeah.
Because
that.
I agree, I think that's a super important piece of the story.
yeah, okay.
Because it shows like how worried he was,
Mhm.
and that he got that like I could have really messed up my whole family situation.
If he had just said, he's really worried about the bills not being paid, if he didn't mention the lights, would you still give him?
Yes, as long as he
Yeah.
made some, like, as long as it wasn't
As long
just
as you
like,
got that trait or those
that,
feelings from
that you understood that, cause he goes so far that he's so worried about it, he forgets his birthday.
Yeah.
Right,
So that's-
exactly.
I mean, he would have wakes up and doesn't even remember it's his birthday the day
That's
that it is.
exactly.
And yet he continues to not solve the problem through the whole story and just carry this random worry and
Yeah.
like, just go tell your mother.
Right, you just wanna shake a shoulder.
Yes.
As long as we're on this topic, can I just ask, I figured out in this last round of step testing that my kids don't understand the gas, like why he's turning the stove on.
This book I think is terribly hard because they don't understand checks. They don't
Right.
understand the idea that you put anything in the mail. They don't know what a bill is. I mean, but I'm guessing they've never seen a letter, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or when
You know,
he's turning on the stove, do
and
they
the
understand
gas
that's
on
for
the
the
stove,
gas
yeah.
bill because
Yeah.
like they're thinking gas for your car.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's why they struggle with it because
So-
it's so foreign. This whole idea of a kid going to the post office with a letter. Has anyone in this school, any child ever done that, do you think?
Right, it's,
I mean, I
I was just curious if anybody else had made that connection that
To be honest,
students
we
were
don't
missing
know
that
how to
piece.
stay. So you really have to get there at a certain time, so. my-
right, that is true.
My kids and I have gotten
You have to
pulled up
stand
several
in line
times,
really long.
very rarely open. Right. We
Well,
go.
Let me continue. We have how many seconds left?
Sorry.
Well, no, that's, why don't I read two more?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It was Jeffrey and his friend Marcus. Jeffrey had to mail these letters for his mom. He kept turning the lights on and off. Marcus told him that he could have his skates, so he came over and they skated together. He was really happy.
one.
Oh,
There's
one.
Is there a zero?
That was a train wreck.
Okay, so that
We
was
got some
easy.
character names in
I
there.
should have read that one. That was too easy. Okay.
No, we feel better though.
Yeah, okay, good.
You
Okay.
boosted our class
Okay.
success.
All right, now this is harder.
Oh, good.
The book is called The Fourth Letter, and that's because the boy named Jeffrey lost one of the letters his mom asked him to mail. She thought he was old enough to mail them, but he stopped to skate with his friend and lost one of them. He shouldn't have stopped, but when he remembered that the letters were for gas, phone, and electricity, he panicked. He thought his mom was going to find out because the lights and phone wouldn't work, and that would be sad or bad. So every morning he got up and tested them. He was really worried. Then one day it turns out to be Jeffrey's birthday. His mom tells him that his gift almost didn't come because the bill wasn't paid. That was the letter Jeffrey never mailed. So he finally tells her the truth and says she understands because he told the truth. Jeffrey is really lucky because he gets the skates he wanted.
Did a kid write
Well, it didn't write it, but yeah, it's a real kid response.
Wow.
So
That's pretty impressive.
it is really. I don't think I could do it that well. So that I'm sort of showing my hand here. That's a 4.
Yeah.
Four.
That sounded
Yes.
like a 4.
I mean,
Because
that's
he shows
incredible.
insight, right? And then
Yeah.
that's the big thing. He shows insight into the characters and like.
He says like the author's message is called the fourth letter, the author, because it's about blah blah blah.
Well, and doesn't he also say like in something about at the end he wasn't going to get his birthday present and that's really sad.
Well, and then his mom, he told the truth, so then his mom said it was okay. You
yeah,
know, like,
yeah, there was a lot of
He
insight.
panicked.
yeah.
Yeah, panicked.
Okay, so here's one a little more nuanced. Jeffrey is going to mail 4 letters. He stops to skate with his friend Marcus, and then he gets to the post office. He sees that he has only 3 letters. He goes home, but he doesn't tell his mom that he lost one of the letters. He keeps getting up and testing the phone. Then he turns on the stove and he turns on the light switches. He keeps turning everything on. Then on his birthday, he gets the skates. The store calls because they didn't get the bill, and Jeffrey tells his mom that he can explain it. He tells her that he lost the letter, and she gives him the skates anyway. It's his birthday.
I would pass that.
Okay.
You would, Kelly?
I don't know.
I know, that's how
I
I
think
feel.
we're
I feel
two. It's a
wishy-washy
2.5.
about it.
What's he missing?
So what's
Is it
he missing?
There's no motivation.
There's no motivation.
Yeah.
There's no traits.
There were no character traits.
And the details he
Mentions
mentioned, he didn't mention
characters.
why it was important, like the lights and the gas, he said all of that, but he
But he
didn't,
didn't say-
he didn't,
yeah.
he didn't
Yeah.
say,
Why he checked it.
yeah, he
like
didn't
said
mention that
checked
he
it,
felt guilty
but-
about it or anything that Carrie said earlier, it was just this happened.
Well, and the really random at the end, it was his birthday.
Yeah.
Like,
So
there was no
therefore-
connection of the birthday to the skates and
And
the
the bill.
bill and it just seemed
But I mean,
very,
it sounds to me like he knows what, it sounded like
It's all
that kid
factual.
understood the whole book.
Yeah, cause it doesn't
I mean,
say
I
he
wouldn't
has to
wanna
have
not
character
pass
traits.
him when he
Right.
understood the whole book.
It doesn't say character traits, it
I mean, you're
doesn't say
saying, tell me what
motivation.
happened in the story.
Right. Here we
So-
go.
otherwise I'm teaching
let-
it way
if we
wrong.
just go straight line by
So are
line,
we
like,
talking about the
does he-
difference then between a 3 and a 4 instead of a 2 and a 3?
Well, that, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So let's,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It sounds
let's
like we're
just
talking
go
about
through
2
it.
and 3, because some of us would pass it and some of us wouldn't.
Yeah.
So let's say, does he include includes major events of plot in sequence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does he describe the main characters using some facts from the story?
Yes.
And he uses some details to support the retelling.
Yeah.
So how did he describe the main characters though? What did
He
he say
says
about them?
Jeffrey has to, he stops to skate with his friend, he goes home, he keeps on getting up until, then on his birthday he gets to skate.
So he never
tells
does
her-
He doesn't
describe the
ever-
main character, he just gives
He
you.
describes what
what
the
he
main
does.
character does.
Right.
But he doesn't
But I mean, like,
describe, he
some of these
describes
books
what
are
he
so
does
simple.
and what he
But I
says.
think the 4 is the one that says shows insight into the characters, not, you know.
See, when I'm talking to the kids and I say, let's describe this, or we're talking about traits and how the actions and, you know, things come into those traits, not, I always tell them, I walk down the street does not tell me anything about you or describe you. So that, I think, that word leads me into thinking I need some descriptions of this
Right.
character, not I need to tell you what the character did and that's it.
Right.
But like if you look at that, read that one before again, in that one that we said a 4, he didn't say, did he say?
These are a lot of word, descripting words.
But what do we
like
really know
canning
about
and-
Jeffrey apart
But
from
it
the
is-
fact that he worried about the, I mean, it doesn't really describe him all that much in the story itself, I mean, it doesn't.
Because you have to infer a
You,
lot.
their inference, yeah, that,
He's like he's a reporter, this kid.
Mhm.
Um,
Factual.
so like who would give it a 3, who would give it a 2? So you'd give it a 2, 3.
can I give it a 2.5?
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel about it.
And then
But
like
then that's why you would pass it.
Then the
You
kid would
would
pass the step. If they get a 2, they don't pass the step.
right, and then that's
If that's
where
the
you might
only thing
consider-
holding this child back, then I would change it, but
Yeah.
initially,
that's what happens,
and I
because
think
otherwise
that's
they
what
read
it
that
comes
book
down
5
to,
times.
yeah.
That's what I've done.
Right.
If
Yep.
they
You know,
don't
Avery
even
like
between
that.
a 2 and a 3, I look and see how they answer all the other
So if
questions.
they get all those
Yeah.
comprehension
Hit
questions and they
all
know
the-
everything.
If they
Yeah.
nail all those comprehension questions and they're insightful, yeah, then I would, but I would be, I think in the back of my mind saying, boy, are we gonna work on some of these character things as I move
Right.
forward with this child.
Because like that one question says, why doesn't he tell his mom? Well, that's a place for him to show why he doesn't tell his mom, is he, you know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So yeah, because otherwise they'll read these books forever, because they're not, you know what I mean,
Right.
and there's only 2 books.
Well, the stat gives it a 3. Your standards are high.
It's
Nothing
because
wrong
she's
with
the
that.
reading person.
Right.
The reading guru.
According to this, you know, you could argue, or some of you argued, check,
'Yep.
3. Not to say, but perhaps needs and, you know, maybe it would be one of those needs interpretation,
Right.
that would be a
We
great
also
note.
learned something really good about the child, that the child is very